Hey crafters, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our Whimsical Woodland tissue topper. I've got everything cut out here, as should you, as always. And we're going to start off with some simple things. I have my foam core, and this little piece here is a little template. And you can see that there's a little T there to indicate that it's a topper. And what I typically like to do, and we're going to need to cut 2 of these, is just kind of line it up. I like to use edges that are already pre-cut for me, so I don't have to cut 4 sides, obviously. And then this way you can really maximize your supplies. Okay, so there's one. I'll cut that out. I've got a nice sharp X-Acto. And I try to cut it as straight as I can. Sometimes I notice that I get my blade in there at an angle and it comes out looking kind of wonky, so try to keep it nice and straight. Make sure you're not cutting any of your pieces underneath in case they ended up under there somehow. Whoop, there we go, see that? All right, there's one. And that's not totally perfect, but we left a little room for error. Doesn't need to be completely perfect here. So I'm gonna go over here and just use my little template to draw this out. Okay. And just get that cut out. Pretty simple. I think I have my blade retracted too much, that's why it's kind of wobbling. There we go, much better. All right, okay. So we're gonna use that inside of our base. When we create these structures, we like to include bases. And by the way, this is not a perfect square, so you need to be aware of that. And I have this bottom piece here already pre-cut. Okay, and what we're gonna do is begin by applying glue to our little triangles here. Pull them in, line it up, and press and hold. Try to go easy on the glue. It'll just make for a much quicker assembly if your paper's not sopping wet from all the glue. Okay. And grab this next wall, bring it in. It's been a while since I've done a 3D structure. We've done 2 sets of cards. So it's been like a month, which hopefully you guys are kind of itching to do something fun for summer. We've got this bundle and we've got 2 more little summery things that we have in store for you. And then believe it or not, just because we're a little bit ahead on our releases as far as holidays and such, well, every year we like to kind of get a jump start on your Christmas crafts, because I know things get crazy around the holidays, so Christmas in July is gonna be a good time. We have some fun stuff in store for you guys. Possibly you may see the highly requested advent calendar. Okay, so I'm gonna move at least 2 sides up a little bit so that we can get these in here. And now also, before you put it in, check your orientation, because as I mentioned, one side is a tiny bit longer. Okay, so it needs to go in like this. Okay, just pop it in there. Don't rip the tabs apart. If you want, you can add a little bit of glue to this, just to make sure that the 2 layers stay together. Okay. And honestly, I don't know that they would really move around too much anyway. Okay, so we'll press that down. Make sure all these tabs come in nicely. Okay. All right, next, I'm gonna grab this piece here. It's really the only other piece that's square shaped that matches with this section here that we're already using. And we're gonna apply glue to just one of these tabs. And let's spread that out nice and thin. This is actually gonna be the bottom, so it doesn't really matter too much, but you still wanna make it nice. Get that nice and centered right on that tab, all the way out to the very edge. And then press that down. And the cool thing is with that foam core in there, you can actually push down on it completely. And I goofed up. Because remember now, as I mentioned, it's not a perfect square. Okay, so I actually need to glue it down in this orientation. Make sure that you're putting it on correctly, because one side is a tad bit longer than the other. Okay. So this one's going to go right here, actually, like so. So I just rotated it 90 degrees. There we go. It happens. Okay. Had a little kitchen incident there with that little guy. I didn't know they made Band-Aids non-flesh colored. That was interesting. Okay, so now we're going to close this up and we're going to apply glue to the remaining 3 tabs. And I'll try to work quickly here, since we've got a lot of surface to cover. And I do want to spread this out nicely to the very edge, like so, before it all dries. It's relatively humid here today, so I'm thinking that the glue is going to stay pretty wet for me throughout. Okay, and just take those sides, give them a little nudge in if necessary. On all 3 sides, line that up as accurately as you can, and then just continue pressing down along the perimeter. Create a nice solid base for our little tissue topper. You guys wanted another tissue topper, and I thought about maybe doing like a general store, or I don't know. There's so many different options, but none of them like really universally spoke summer to me. And then I came across this idea. I thought it was pretty cute. Okay, so now if you take a look at this side, this is the side we're going to use since it's already cleaned up. One thing that we can do, because a little bit of this grass is actually going to be showing through just slightly above the fence line. If you want, I'd recommend it because it's fun, is you can take and just kind of ink the surface of this a little bit just to muddy it up. I did a lot of inking actually on this project. Probably spent a good hour just inking all of the little pieces. Okay, now because we're dealing with kind of a whimsy project, and if you think about where you would find a structure like this, I would find one in, you know, in an alternate universe, I guess, or in some sort of fiction novel. This would be in some sort of a fairy forest, something ethereal, and whoever built this probably did a pretty good job, but I don't know if they're overly concerned with maintenance of their home. So you can get a little crazy with the inking. It's almost like a little Halloween project where, you know, you can muddy things up a little bit and be a little more flexible with your inking. Now you'll notice there's a little F here and there's 2 little score marks. That's where our little sidewalk or little path is going to go. I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Okay, so don't really need to ink there because that's going to be covered up. So I'm going to go over here to the other side. Okay, and kind of hitting this surface here too, because I want it to be visible on the sides as well. Okay, and I notice I have a few little gaps on the base. I'll fix that by doing a little painting with some scrap paper. Okay, not a big deal. And I might even just grab the ink pad. And, I think maybe that one's just kind of drying out a little bit. Or I need something a little darker, but I think that's okay. Gives it a little interest there on the surface. I might even just kind of come in a little bit with the ink on the corners so it doesn't look so square. You can see it. Just adds a little interest to it and go as heavy as you'd like. Next, we're going to put the fence on, and you'll notice at the front of your platform there's a little F with 2 score marks, so that's going to be your front. We're going to grab the piece with the 2 tabs, one on the left, one on the right. You want to fold those over, and then you're going to apply glue to just the bottom part of the fence. And we're going to line that up with the back of our base, making sure that it's flush with the bottom. And those 2 tabs should wrap around the base nicely. Just hold that in place. Just make sure that everything is nice and secure. And just keep pressing down. Then we can move over and pull that little tab over, apply some glue just to the bottom part of it, and then push it up against the base on the adjacent side. Just like that. Give that a quick press. Do the same thing on the other side. Just flare that out, apply your glue, press it down into place. And then you can grab one part of the fence. Now, one side has a front that's a little bit longer. That's the left side, you can see there. And the other side, the front part is a little bit shorter. Both of the front parts are going to match up with the little score mark there. That's to the left and right of the letter F. Okay, and before we put that in place, we can grab our little walkway, which is folded. You can see the skinnier part's going to go on the face or the front of the base, and the longer part's going to go on the surface. And I did ink and emboss that. We'll add our glue, and then just use the little score marks on the base to help you with the placement. Just get it right in between those 2 little score marks. Push that into place. Nice and secure on top and on the side. And once we've got that in place, we can move over to the fence. And let's get the short side glued down first. You want to make sure you fold it at the little score mark there. And just get that lined up. There should be a little score mark there that will match up perfectly with the side edge there of the base itself. Just make sure it's flush with the bottom. I have a little gap there that I'll end up fixing. Then you can flare out the long part of the fence, and same as the back, just apply glue to the very bottom part of the fence and then fold it over, and it should terminate on the other end on top of the other fence post. Again, making sure that it's flush on the bottom. Just run your finger up and down that bottom part where the glue is. Make sure it's nice and secure. Give it a few seconds, and then we're just going to repeat that same process with the left side of our fence. Let's get the front glued into place, glue just on the bottom, and match that up, flush on the bottom there. So there's a little bit of that grass is showing. Press that into place. That score mark should match up with the corner, and you'll notice that the fence post should pretty much butt up against that little walkway as well. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and apply glue to the bottom of the long part and pop that into place just like we did on the other side. Just go nice and easy. Again, making sure it's flush on the bottom of the base. And our fence is pretty much complete. And there we go. So the next thing we're going to do is grab the little piece that's going to hold our tissue holder in place. There's a series of 4 triangular tabs. We'll apply glue to one at a time and fold that in. Grab that tab, line it up with the adjacent wall, glue it right to the back, try to get it as accurate as you can. And then we'll do the same thing with the remaining 3 tabs, just doing one at a time. And we'll apply our glue to the next little triangle. If you get too much on there, just kind of dab it with your finger, thin it out. It'll go a lot quicker. Press that in place. There we go. Okay, a couple more. Then we're going to take this entire element and I'm going to glue it down to the base. We have some little markers there to help you with the positioning of it so it's nice and centered. And again, that's where our tissue top or our actual tissue box is going to go. And one other thing too, you may not have to do it, but if you do, just to kind of help it even more, you could put some foam squares in the bottom of the tissue box to keep it in place even more, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. And I didn't ink this part because it's going to be covered up by the house once the house goes on top of this. Now take a look on the actual base. You'll notice that there's a series of little L shapes in the 4 corners here, and that is just to help you with the positioning of this. And then the front of that is going to butt up to the back of our little walkway as well. So you can go ahead and very generously apply your glue to this piece around the perimeter, and then you can do a little bit like that. This part is square, so it doesn't matter how you put it on. Just make sure that you use those little markers to help you with the positioning. There we go. Okay, we'll press that down, especially along the inside perimeter there. And there we go. Okay, so our base is good to go. You can see how that looks. And we can start working on our main structure here. Okay, so we're going to take these 2 pieces, and as you can see, we have big cutouts on one end of each of these, and then there's a cutout in the center. That's for the chimney, and we're actually going to join these end pieces with these tabs, so we can just do that one at a time here. I'm going to flip it this way because it's easier to apply and spread the glue. This is going to be all covered up, so if you kind of get glue on part of this, don't worry too much. Just want to make sure that you match this up as accurately as you can. Should be flush here along the inside. Okay, we'll press that down. Then we'll head over to the other side and apply our glue here. Now sometimes when we're working on structures like this and there's exterior pieces or embellishments for some of the signs, we'll try to put those down before, or just to kind of get them out of the way before we actually get into the structural stuff. But a lot of this stuff is going to be dimensional. So we can't really do that, otherwise we're going to end up risking destroying things. We don't want to do that. Okay? All right, so this is actually going to be, there's not going to be a lip or anything at the bottom like that. That's going to go out flat. And we're going to begin with these 2 pieces, and this is going to be kind of like a little skeleton piece. Okay, so these are basically, they're kind of almost mirrored. Okay, what I want you to do is flip this so that on the front here you have these 2 holes. You'll notice that there's only 1 towards the back. There's 2 towards the front. We'll call this the front. Okay. And the front is a little bit different. It has, well, the back has a giant circle, and it's just a giant window. The front has a series of 3 little windows, and then it has this little element here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin by anchoring this to the face of this piece here. We want this edge here and the front edge to be lined up. Okay, so now you can't really put it out flat because it's angled, but these should be flush. Okay, so we'll start by just anchoring this 1 tab just so that we get a good start, nice accurate start. Okay, and you can actually see that this is still segmented. It's not perfectly round. We did that on purpose to help you with the positioning of this. This is actually very simple. Okay, so just line that up, push this surface down as far as it'll go up against this piece, and then just hold that in place, like so. Okay, so now that it's anchored, you can see here, we're going to put all of these tabs are going to go on the front, and you can see how perfectly it all fits. Okay, so here's what we can do to make this process easy. I'm going to flip this around like so, and let's grab, I don't know, you can see the tabs here, these little alligator teeth, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to do 6. We'll push them in. Okay, then we're going to tuck them under, make sure they're flat, and then starting at the bottom, or at the base where we glued our first tab, just start pushing that in around our skeleton and push down from the inside, like so. And then when you flip it over, that's what it should look like, okay? So we'll just kind of keep on cruising here and do as many as you want. I'm doing like 6 at a time here. I feel like that's a good number. I think I just did 7, getting kind of crazy. Okay. And same thing, tuck those tabs under. Make sure they're up against that skeleton piece as far as they go. And then press down from the inside right up to the edge, like so. There you go. Okay. So we have a few more tabs to go. Get around the entire perimeter. I'm going to redo that one. Kind of tugged on it a little bit. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just do 6. Seems like a good number. Okay. Tuck that in, pushing this way with my right hand, then pushing down with my pointer finger on my left hand to get those 2 sections to join. There you go. Easy. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's wrap it up with number 7. Tuck those tabs under, and look at that. Like a glove. And press that down, make sure it's up against that surface as far as you can go without disturbing the laws of physics, I guess you could say. Okay. Now another thing we can do while we have it like this is this large vellum piece. Okay, there's 2 of them that are basically the same size. Okay, and get those glued down. And what I would do is just do a little bit of glue around the perimeter. You can go inside here. No one's going to see the inside. Just keep it away from the cutouts so it doesn't accidentally bleed through. Okay. Make sure that you are, in fact, covering up all of the cutouts. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's what that should look like. Wonderful. Now, I'm going to go over to the other side, and we're going to get this other side in place using the same strategy and same method. This one's going to be a little bit different because one side's already put together, so we have a little less flexibility, but it's not that much different. Let's make sure that we get that first piece properly anchored and everything is nice and lined up. Should be nice and flush there, those 2 adjacent sides. Push that in as far as it'll go up against the skeleton piece. And just hold that down, just like that. Okay, and then we can take and start flaring out some tabs. can see here I've got, we'll do 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Push those tabs in. Okay. Like I said, it's going to be a little different. I'm pushing down with my right hand while pushing this in up against the skeleton piece with my left. Okay. And there you go. And just keep on cruising here. The rest of this, the rest of the assembly of the actual structure is pretty straightforward because it's really just paper piecing. 4, 5, 6. I'll tuck those under slightly. Okay, pushing them under. It's going to get a little dark in there now. That's why we wanted to add some lights. And that's another thing too that we'll do well, once we get the structure put together. Okay, but you can see there the tabs are going on nicely. If for whatever reason you're struggling with this method, technically you can if you want. Just put some glue on each of the tabs and then just do them like this where you can see everything. I just think that it's quicker to do it the way that I'm showing you. Because like I said, you can technically just apply glue here. And I kind of want to show you this method as well so that you really see what in fact is going on here. It's just, I'm kind of doing it more efficiently. Okay, so again, what we'll do is we'll pull about 6 of these tabs out. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That one's going to need a little more than that. Tuck those in. Okay. And I'm pushing this way to make sure that this is going all the way up against that little segmented skeleton structural piece. It just goes quicker. Okay, so you can see how much quicker that went. And we're pretty much on the last leg here. I'm just going to go last 6 tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And fold those in. There we go. Okay, got one more here that I maybe rushed a little bit. That's okay. All right. Well, you can see actually a few of them here that kind of pulled away. And that could just be because I didn't get enough glue on there, but that's okay. I can fix those real quick. Or maybe I just didn't press hard enough. There we go. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right. All right, so while we have it like this, let's grab the other piece of vellum there. And this is big enough to get your 2-ounce glue bottle into. So just go ahead and go around little cutouts. Try to stay away from don't get too close to the cut. You can see how crazy that looks in there, and that's fine. No one's gonna be looking inside anyway. Okay, just pop that into place. Make sure you are in fact covering up all of the little cutouts so our beautiful light is able to shine through like that. Okay. And then we're going to need to apply these 2 pieces of vellum to the inside here. Okay, you can see how we've got a handful of circles there. Okay, so do the same thing. Just kind of work around the circles. Doesn't have to be perfect. Kind of like that. If you want to make it prettier, which you can, I guess you could probably just apply glue to the perimeter of the vellum and then pop it in, but I'm only concerned about making sure that it's there and that there's no glue seeping out into the cutouts. So I'd rather apply my glue to the inside like this. And then we have some of those fairy lights that have that little battery, and you could do that now or you could do it later. It doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to wait and do that last, when my structure is a little more structurally sound. Okay, but there's the other piece of vellum. Okay. All right, so next, let's grab our gold layer. Okay, and one side is going to go, you want to make sure you grab the right side so that it matches up with the little cutouts for the vellum. Okay, you can see how we've made those holes a little bit bigger. This is going to be flush with the bottom here, and then the rest of it is just going to wrap around like so. And you can see this little part is kind of free floating. We'll glue that down in a little bit here. But what I do want to do is maybe kind of curl this a little bit. So I'm going to take a dowel and I'm just going to kind of lift this up towards me and run that dowel to kind of, what we're doing is loosening the fibers of the paper in there, and you can see how it just automatically kind of rounds it for us. Pretty crazy. Not really. Okay, and then you can see how much better that fits. It'll be easier to work with. We'll do the sides first. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply our glue to this entire piece, especially out towards the ends and the edges. If for some reason we have any little sections that aren't completely flush, we can always go in using our painting method and get them to sit nice and flat. Don't worry about that little loose piece in the center. I'm going to use my painting method to get that in place, but make sure this is flush with the bottom and nice and centered. Okay, focusing on the bottom first, looking at my centering, making sure that it's nice and centered, and then we can kind of work our way up. Make sure it's flush. If it helps, you can always kind of rock it back and forth as you press down. You don't want to press down on the whole thing all at once because you'll wreck this thing. Yep, checking my centering, that looks good. Make sure it's nice and secure at the bottom. Okay, there we go. Just like that. Let's go over to the other side. I'll show you this little tip here. Again, I'm just kind of, it's flat on my surface right now, but I'm lifting up one side and then very slowly just kind of rolling the dowel along the paper. And you can see how it naturally gives it a little bit of a curve. Just needs just a tiny bit so it's not so flat. Okay, we're going to match this up with the cutouts for the vellum. So that's going to go on like that. And the same process applies. Let's get our glue on here, especially out around the perimeter. Okay. All right, watch those little score marks. Make sure you get it good and centered. And just a little bit of this is going to actually be sticking out, but we needed to weigh this down, and we wanted to make it nice and sturdy. So sometimes we have to add some more layers to things where you think, well, could have probably saved some paper if we just cut this out this way. But you know what? Tested that, and this thing needs to be a little bit heavier so that the tissue doesn't just lift the whole thing up. Okay, check your seams here, make sure everything is nice and flush all the way around. That looks pretty good. All right, so now, remember these little guys I was talking about here? Grab yourself a couple scraps of paper, kind of like that, and I'm going to apply some glue to the very edge, the end of my paper here. You can take this and just lift it up a little bit, or just slide it under and just paint some glue onto or underneath that section there, and then just press that down. The whole thing doesn't really need to make full contact with it, just as long as you get some of it. So it doesn't get ripped on accident. There you go. And we'll go over here. Same thing. Let's lift this up. And I'm just going to kind of dab some glue on there. Just like that. And press that down. You can obviously stick your hand inside to help push up against this little piece. There we go. Okay. Okay, one other thing that I'm going to do here before we move on is grab a fresh piece of scrap and just check the little edges here just to make sure that everything is sitting nice and flush. I don't want my edges to be kind of disconnected from the base. I want them to be as flush to the structure as possible so that when we put the front on, everything looks nice and seamless. Okay, and that looks a lot better. If you're using gold foil like I am, you may have to do this as well. I feel like if you're using cardstock instead of gold foil, you may not encounter this additional little step, mostly because that cardstock is a little more malleable and will sit a lot easier without you having to do all the work that you would with the gold foil. Next, we're going to grab these two pieces here, and I just need to figure out where it goes. And you can see here that there's a series of cutouts. Some of them will actually allow the vellum to poke through, while others just have the little gold elements kind of poking through. Okay, so this one obviously goes here. Since this is thinner, I'm not worried about training it. I think it'll be just fine. We can just take and apply it just very carefully, taking our time, just making sure that it wraps around nicely. Just make sure you get your glue throughout the back here. Avoid the little cutouts, obviously. And just like we did, I'm going to start off by getting this aligned with the very bottom, making sure that it's flush, and then also ensuring that it's centered, left and right. And then very slowly, just work your way up until it's in place. Okay, you can actually use your table too. Just make sure you kind of rock it when you do that so that you don't destroy it. Make sure it's nice and flush. Surprisingly went on pretty easy considering that I'm putting cardstock on gold foil. This foil does have a texture to it, so maybe that's why it's not giving me as much of a hard time, but look how pretty that looks. Especially when that light shines through it, it's going to look fantastic. Okay, just making sure everything's nice and secure. And then we'll go over to the other side and do the same thing. Just make sure we're getting that lined up correctly. Take and apply our glue. And that's another thing too. As far as the fairy lights go, I would insist on applying those to the inside before we put on all of the little details on the outside so that we can kind of work in there without having to worry about destroying any of the little dimensional elements around the outside. Okay, so I'm going to flip this like this so I can start at the bottom, get that centered and flush, and then the rest of it just kind of naturally falls into place like so. Definitely work that perimeter. There we go. That worked out very nicely. That's the first combination of cardstock and foil that actually play well together. It makes me happy. That is already looking really cool. Okay, very cool. Okay, so the rest of the elements that go on the side are dimensional embellishments. So that means that we can move on to the front and back, and the process is going to be pretty much the same. We're going to put our foil in place first, and then we'll put our panel in place. Okay, so you see how that goes on. And you can either put glue on here. I'm just going to work it onto this structure here, onto the actual gold. Just make sure that you're getting that glue out to the perimeter as far as you can. And start working it in. And then let's go ahead and just get a little bit on these sections here that are going to go onto our vellum. I had a little bit kind of squirt out there. Rub that off before it causes any problems. Just make sure you have the right piece for the corresponding side. And we are going to start at the bottom, making sure that it's flush and centered. And then just start pressing that down. And once you kind of have it aligned, you can push it down on your surface and start pushing down on from the inside. I think it'll just be easier that way. I may have gone a little too sparse on the glue here. We'll find out in a second. Maybe not though. We'll find out. Kind of just like when we were doing that skeleton piece. I'm working my finger around the perimeter against those tabs, and then also pressing towards the center. And there we go. Okay, take a look at the edges. And you can see there, I got a nice big old gap there. So I'll take my scrap piece of paper and I'm going to paint a little bit of glue right in that area where I did not get enough glue. And then I can use a thin dowel maybe to really get into the corner there. And push that down. You can use your fingers too, that's fine. Just make sure that it's nice and flush. I have a gap there. I'm gonna clean that up. And that's probably because that's where I started applying my glue. And by the time, because I applied it a little thin, by the time I got to that part, started pushing it down, it had probably already dried up on me. So just reapply and push it into place. It's a lot of surface area to cover. That's okay. And even if that isn't perfectly flush, we're gonna have a roof that's covering it completely. So it's not the end of the world. That part is gonna be rather forgiving. Okay, all right, let's head on over to the other side. And just to show you that there's more than one way to do this, now this one here, just wanna make sure that we get this part lined up accurately. You can actually, if you want, you can apply the glue here. I don't want to do it. My gut tells me to do it on here. Okay, so I'm going to do it here. That's what my gut tells me for whatever reason, even though I don't really think it makes a difference. Okay, so you can tell I started there, and it's possible that by the time I got this in place, that part was already a lot more dry than the rest of the glue that I've applied. And I'm not going to worry too much about every single inch of this. Okay, getting the bottom flush and this whole section centered. Look at this part here and make sure that that lines up accurately. Okay, and then once we have that lined up, let's go ahead and start really pushing down using our table to kind of help us push up while we're pushing down. Almost creating an extra force to help us. There we go. Beautiful. Let's take a look at our seams. Seems good. Yeah, that time worked out a lot better. Okay, cool. So I have, those are some of the embellishments, and this is the front and back. Okay, so you can see how that's going to go on. That looks really cool. All right. So go ahead and apply our glue to the back of this, and you can see that I did ink this. You know what I didn't do that I probably should have done? I'm gonna grab another ink pad because I feel like that one might be, yeah, that one's probably seen better days. I'm just doing it from this side here so that when I do that, more of it's getting on the surface. You could do it from either side. Like I said, I'm just kind of being a little crazy with it. Okay, cool. So that looks nice. And now, just like we did those sides, these are going to go on like this. Okay, so let's flip this around and begin applying our glue nice and thin. We don't need to cake the glue on here because it may end up warping the paper if it gets too wet. So just very gentle. Okay, work around these little circles. Just try to cover as much surface as you can without losing your mind. Whoops, I'm gonna grab it down here. Get the bottom lined up first, flush and centered, like that. This little fleur-de-lis should match up nicely. There we go. Let's put that down, press down from the inside. There we go. Take a look and see how it's all panning out. Beautiful. And you can see I've got a little gap there. I could probably use my little painting method to clean that up, but everything else looks great. So we'll flip this over and head over here and get this piece in place. Whoops. And if you, again, are having a hard time getting all of the surface area covered with glue and placed in place before it all dries, do your best, and you can always grab that scrap piece of paper and just paint a little bit of extra glue in any of the areas that might need it. Okay, so I'm starting down here because a straight line is a straight line. You can use your fingers to feel for that flush feel and then just press it up against the rest of it. Use your surface whenever possible. There we go. Yeah, it's turning out really nice. Cute. All right, so here's our front. A few other elements that we can put in place that are non-dimensional, so to speak. Okay, we have the door. We went with a purple for the first layer. That looks really cool. So let's get that glued down. And then we added a few little wooden elements, obviously. Naturally, makes sense. The green is supposed to be kind of like maybe like some moss or some grass that you would find in the forest. And so I get that lined up with that little cutout so that that beautiful light can shine through. Again, making sure it's flush on the bottom. Let's put that on our surface and press down. Okay, just like that. And next, tell you what, before we do anything else, we have this black layer, and then we have in our case, we went with a wood grain texture, okay? And I'm going to glue this down onto the black layer off of the house first. I think it'll just be easier to apply. Okay, get some glue on there. And there's a few little stray cutouts that need to be glued into place. They're little small pieces, but not too difficult to work with. Okay, I've got a little bit of glue there. And just match it up with that little element there in the center of the door. I think I would focus on that initially. There we go, press that down. Okay, there's this little fella here. He's going to go right here, like so. And then there's two little pieces that are going to go on that little decorative element, but we wanted to maintain the little black part so it looks like they're made out of boards, or there's cracks between the boards, or space between the boards, whatever you want to call it. Just a nice little design element. There's that. And then one more little piece. It almost looks like a little shoe. Okay, so ignore this white splotch on my door here. Get to the point here where we've got the main vertical pattern onto the black. We're going to take this piece and we're going to glue this in place. You can see that I made a little boo-boo, and actually we added a little element to it because something just didn't seem right. And that's going to go right here. You want to match that up with the little hole where the doorknob is going to go eventually. Okay. Just like that. And then I'm going to take this piece and glue that on top. I got a piece missing that we needed to add to make it look right. And that's going to go right on top there so that it looks like we have two boards. Just like that. There we go. And then we have these little hinges. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on these, just a few little dots. You want to squeeze some glue out and just use the tip of your nozzle to apply it. And then this bigger one is going to go up on top, like so. Press that into place. You can see there's kind of a little shadow for that element there. And then the smaller one is going to go on the bottom. Let's try to get a little bit of glue to cover that whole thing. And that is going to go right there. You can see that there's also a little shadow element for that there. And there we go. Move this out of the way. Okay, so there's our door. And that is going to get glued on like this, right in this position. That little hole there, perfect little spot for a rhinestone, a pearl, or I'm sure you guys have tons of bling that you can choose from. Okay, there we go. And let's get that lined up. I love the dark wood on this entire structure. Just really adds some nice contrast. And we got the golds kind of all over the place. There we go. Awesome. Okay. All right, so a couple directions we can go at this point. As I mentioned, we have a series of little flowers, and then we have these little leaves, but I don't want to put those on right now because I do want to put and install the lights. And actually there's one more little thing that we can do to the main structure before we put the lights in and then build the roof, and that is to build our chimney. So I have the parts of the chimney here, and these little tabs here at the bottom, we're going to use those to secure this to the actual structure. But if we wrap this around, we have one tab that's on the side. We're going to use that to make this continuous and close it like so. Whoops. Just try to line that up as accurately as you can, like so. And technically, this should be, I think, symmetrical, which means you should be able to lay it down flat. And yes, you can. Okay, so what we can do is you'll notice that we have 4 pieces here. 2 of them have some tabs. The rectangular ones have tabs, and those are going to go on the sides like this. Okay, you can see that I inked and embossed this with a really cool brick texture. I'm going to put my glue on the main rectangle here. I'm not going to do the tabs just yet. So do the rectangles first. Make sure it's flush with the top. You might have a little bit of purple still showing on the bottom, but that's by design. The roof is going to kind of hide that once we get it into place. Okay, and then these little tabs, you can take and put some glue on them and then fold them over and glue them up against the adjacent section or side. We'll do the same thing on this side. And fold that over, press it into place. Okay, and then we're going to go over here, do the same thing on this one. Apply your glue to the main rectangle, flush with the top or the opening where our tissue is going to come out, like so. Put that down on your surface if you want. Press that down. Then we're going to take these tabs, apply our glue, and bring them over onto this surface, the adjacent section. And then we've got 2 additional pieces that are going to go right on top of that. And we've got those tabs there just to make sure that everything looks nice and seamless. Those 2 pieces are identical, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. Just take and apply your glue to this whole section. And again, making sure it's flush at the top. If you have a little bit of purple at the bottom, that's okay. Just hide and make sure that it's flush at the top. I'm going to put that down on my surface and press down like that. You can have see your little chimney coming together. And there we go. And there we go. Okay. So there's our chimney, and now as you can see it's going to be like this, and these little tabs here, we're going to fold them this way out. Let's get a few of them in like that. Okay, flip this around so you can see from the underside. I'm going to take and fold all of these tabs out, and we'll start by anchoring a few of these tabs in place. Okay, so you can see how that's going to go in there. Why don't we start with one of the sides? So start with this triangle here. Just throw a little bit of glue on that. Okay, and then we're going to take it. I'm going to do it and then I'll show you what it looks like. And I'm pushing it right up against this surface here. But I just like to look at it from here just to make sure that the chimney looks nice and even. Okay, so you can see that tab right there that I'm pointing to, kind of, let me use my dowel right there. That one's glued into place. Then we'll go over to the other side and apply some glue onto that tab. You can see it there. I'll take it, I'll flare that tab out and press it up against this surface here where my 2 fingers are. Make sure it's nice and centered so that our roof goes on without any issues. And I mean, realistically, that's not going to go anywhere, but just for good measure, especially these 4 larger tabs, let's go ahead and fold those down. You can see those 2 that I folded down. We'll put some glue on those. and then fold those over onto the surface there. Let me just do it, and then I'll show you what it looks like in a second here. There we go. Pushing up with my thumb, pushing down with my 2 fingers to help it kind of grab. Gotta be patient. Make sure it really sticks. There we go. You can see those 2 there in place. I'm gonna flip these 2 down, and you're gonna do the same thing with the little ones there. And honestly, I almost feel like we could have omitted those tiny little guys. I don't think you really need them, but I'm gonna glue them down anyway. I don't know that they're really gonna do much for us. They're so small. And like I said, once we get the roof on here, it's gonna cover up a tiny little section of it, about 2 or 3 thicknesses of paper. Okay, you can see all those teeth down there. And then let's just flare these out and just do a little drop of glue on all 4 of these little guys. And then fold them over up against the inside. Those should go quick since they're so small. You can kind of feel and do it without even having to look. Okay, you can see those there. I got one of them that I need to give it a little extra love to. There we go. Okay, so that is it. Let me grab my fairy lights. Okay. So what I want to mention here is that we're not really going to specify exactly which set of fairy lights you need. We will recommend the ones that we're using, but I don't see why you can't use whatever fairy lights you want. What we're going to do, and what we did in a previous project, was actually just use some Velcro dots to keep the little battery pack in place. Okay, so I'm going to peel this back, and we're going to start off by just getting the battery pack anchored, and then I will give a recommendation on how to run the actual fairy lights. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 of them just for good measure. That way you can pull this thing out. It just uses one of those little tiny batteries. So if you need to change the battery, it's very easy just to pop it out. Let me grab this and just get in there to help peel this off a lot easier for me. There we go. Okay, now this is the back. Okay, and I'm just going to pop this right in here. I'll show you in a second so you can see. Okay, and I just took these are just foam squares, so I'm sorry, it's Velcro. So there's the 3 Velcro dots. That way this thing stays in place. Okay, and then at the beginning of this, it always kind of bunches up. So I'm just going to take and kind of gather up this excess and kind of bunch it all together. And this first little individual light, I'm going to put right here. I'll show you in a second. Let me just get that. And typically what I do is I just use Scotch tape. You could, if you want to make it more permanent, you can hot glue it, although I don't recommend that. I don't think it's necessary. But for that first little bunch, maybe just use 2 pieces of tape to really hold it down and smush it down so it's nice and flat. Okay, no one's going to see that. Okay, obviously you can see there's nothing visible. Okay, and then we're going to take this first light and we're going to put it right on top of the first little cutout where the vellum is. Okay, and I'm literally going to take and put a piece of Scotch tape right on there. And as I do it, I'll show you kind of what it looks like. Okay, so you can see, there it is. And you can see how it's kind of glowing there from the outside. Now, you know what you also want to do is angle it so that you notice that there's wire on one side and then a light on the other. I would put the light face down so you don't see the wire from the outside. Okay, so that's very simply accomplished by just flipping it around, and now you see an actual light. You don't see the wire, okay? And then next, just gonna kind of work our way around, and you can see that I'm pointing to it right there. And do the same thing there. with a piece of Scotch tape. And should be plenty of room to get your hands in there. Just tape that down. And there you go. You can see that one's nice and illuminated. See it from the inside. There we go. Okay, then what I want to do, I'm going to take and I'm going to bunch at least 2, if not 3 of these lights around that main window. I want that to be nice and illuminated. You might need to kind of twist and turn these a little bit. And these I'm not going to glue down. Okay, so I would leave one light kind of suspended relatively close to the large window, and then start working your way over to the next tiny little light. I'll get that taped down and show you what it looks like. And some of you, I've noticed, have been using little LED strips too, so there's a lot of different ways that you can accomplish this. And like I said, I'll walk you through the way that we devised doing it, and I think it's pretty magical, so I don't have to go nuts with this. So I've taped the light for this guy down, and then this little individual one, since this is the back, you're not going to really see too much of it. That one is just going to kind of hang relatively close to the window so that you just see kind of a faint glow. Especially at night, you'll see it better, but that's kind of all we want for that. So we want to focus the lights mostly on the sides and the front. Okay, so speaking of that, we're going to actually head over to the right-hand side here, so right here, and then find the first little cutout closest to the last one. And let me put this one down and I'll show you what I mean. Get that one in place. Make sure you've got the wire side up. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so you can see that. You can see it from the inside. It's that one there. And then we'll just work our way up to the next one, the one that's just slightly above it, to the right. And try to keep those wires as flat up against the structure on the inside as possible. If you feel like, well, you know what, that one might snag or something, then just put a little extra tape on the wire wherever it is so it doesn't move. Hot glue can be okay too. So let me show you what I mean. So that wire just naturally went up there, right there, and I taped it down. There's the next one right there. And then again with this, I'm going to try to get this one here is going to be mostly free floating. So I'm going to take and apply some tape to this extra wire here and try to get that one to kind of float, and then tape around the window. I would not tape it to that window because that wire may show through. Unless you use a different color vellum, then maybe you wouldn't have to worry about it so much. I just don't want the wire to be visible from the outside. I want it to look as magical as possible. So let me show you what I mean there. So I taped this wire down. I let that kind of float freely in the air, but just slightly away from the surface, and then I taped the wire down here so that from the outside, and I maybe could have centered that better. Let me try that again. There we go. Try to get it centered if you can. There we go. That looks cool. And then just work your way up to the next cutout, which would be, I'm going to go top right on that side. And you get the idea. Just working our way around, trying to get our lights. There's one there. That looks nice. Then we'll work our way down. You can see I just did that one there. Then I'm going to go here. And you may need to kind of wrap that wire a little bit, flatten it out, whatever you need to do to get the light in the next section. Try to center it as best as you can too. It'll just look nicer if you can do that. There you go. See what I mean? Okay, so now ultimately, well, not quite, but we're going to head towards the front. And I want one of the lights on the door, probably behind one of these sections here, or actually it could just be right on there. That's fine too. You might have to lift it up a little bit, get some light to penetrate in there so you can actually see where you're putting it. Let me rotate that a little bit. Pop that right on there and see what that looks like. That works. I think that's cool. And then we'll go up to the top left. Actually, we'll go to this little dot here in the center. We'll do that one first. Okay, make sure the wires are up, light down. I think they're all kind of built the same way, so hopefully that makes sense. There we go. And then we'll work our way left to right. So I'm going to move this wire over. And again, for that one, I want to tape around the windows. I don't want to tape on the window. Try to get that light centered. I'll show you here in a second. Let me just get it down. Try to get the light centered on the window, but don't put tape on the window. We want it kind of back a little bit. Okay, just lift it ever so slightly. So right there on that window, it's actually not flush against the window, it's up a little bit, and I put the tape before and after the light. So it looks like that. Actually gives it an even softer glow. You could technically do that for all the windows if you want, but okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for this large window here and just try to kind of lift that light up ever so slightly and then just tape around it. So if this is becoming monotonous for you and you get it, you can pause me here, continue on your own. And the next thing we're going to be working on is the roof. So when you see me grabbing the roof pieces, you know to stop. Okay, so you can see there, got that light hovering over a little bit. Nice soft glow coming from behind there. It's rather bright in here, so it's not going to give you the full effect, but as a night light, this thing's going to be really cool. I would probably prefer, if this is going to be used regularly, to get yourself a fairy light that has a larger battery pack, or maybe even one that you can plug in, so that you don't have to worry about swapping batteries so often. Okay. There we go. Got that one set up. And I've got one more here where I'm going to tape the lights around before and after the window and not onto the window. Okay. And we've made sure that there was plenty of room to where the tissue box would not interfere with the lights. Okay, so you can see the nice soft glow coming out of there as well. Okay, so that just leaves this last side, and again, I'm going to probably start with this one here, and then go down, this, and this, and then we should have, in this case, just the perfect amount of lights. And we'll make sure to link the exact set of fairy lights that we used. But again, you're welcome to use whatever fairy lights you want. It's completely up to you. Just note that maybe it's possible your fairy lights might, if you don't use the ones that we use, you may have more or less lights. More is not a bad thing. Less could be a bad thing, depending on, you know, how much light you want in there, and if you want every single one of these little lights showing through. Okay, so again, on this large window here, I'm taping around the window and not on the window. Kind of making sure that it's maybe like a half an inch away. That looks nice. You can offset it too. It doesn't have to be directly in the center, just to make it a little more mysterious. All right, so it's time to put our roof together. this is the main part of the roof here, and we have two pieces like this, and they both have a little L cut into them with score marks. Okay, and that's a liner. And just like we did with the main house, okay, so this is your rectangle here, this is where the chimney's gonna go, this is your center line, and on this is a center point. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is just anchor this right at that center point with the two tabs, just making sure that that point is right dead center. Okay, so let's do this. Let's start off by putting glue on the two tabs just to the left and right of the center point. And I'm actually just going to do this on my surface. Okay, get that nice and centered, and it may help to kind of crease that so you can actually see the center point a little bit better. And just pop that, push that right into that center point. And I'm pushing up against my little skeleton piece here. And let's make sure that it ultimately terminates right at the very edge of both sides, which it should. Yeah, my point looks pretty good. Okay, so let's just do one side at a time here. You can take and apply glue to the next tab. I'm gonna do like 4 at a time maybe. I know we did 6 last time. Tuck those under, push them up against the skeleton piece as far as they'll go. And they are segmented, so each little triangle should have its own little spot. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to make sure that's pushed as far as it'll go. And then we got 3 left on this side. Fold those over. And just push that into place. There we go. Nice and easy. Go over to the other side here. Pull these tabs out. And we could maybe even just get them all done in one fell swoop. How about that? You want to start from the center, obviously. Just like that. Make sure it's pushed as far as it'll go up against that little guy. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so now the cool thing is that on this other side here, it's already kind of holding its shape. So all we need to do, again, I'm going to anchor it though. I think it's a smart thing to do. On the 2 tabs, just to the left and right of center. Grab your center point here. And you know what, honestly, if it helps, if you want to draw a line so you can see it better, you can. I'm not going to worry about that though. Pardon my head for a second here. There we go, get that nice and centered, push that up as far as it'll go. Press it down, make sure that glue gets a good hold. Looks good and centered to me. And 2, 3, 4, let's just do them all. You can break it up into multiple steps if you'd like. There you go, tuck those under. And start near the center top. And just keep pushing those up against it as far as it'll go. There we go. Okay. Those look good. And let's head over here. Flare these out. Clean off this nozzle. It's getting kind of yucky. So I'm curious how the cicadas are treating you guys. I have family that are about, I don't know, 30, 40 miles south of us, and they're already starting to see them, and I've not seen a single one yet. So maybe it won't be so bad in this area. I was worried that it was going to be loud while I was doing my videos, and I have to work on like soundproofing or something, but maybe we'll be spared in this area. My house was built on old farmland, and maybe from all the tilling and such, they just didn't have a chance to get established. I don't know. I asked some of the locals around here, and they didn't seem to remember it being so bad, so. But I'm sure when we visit other places, it might be a little crazy. So if you have any tabs that maybe are sticking off or aren't completely flush, just go back in and fix them up. Okay, so next we have a couple overlays. They're gonna go on the front and back. And we're actually gonna put the shingles on after we get the roof over the main structure. You can see here I've got a little tab here that just is being a rebel. And that's okay. There we go. Okay, so obviously this brown piece is going to go on first. We're going to match it up with the little cutouts, like so. Okay, try to flatten this out. And you know what, let's go ahead, I'm going to actually just put the glue on this piece here. And if we need to, which we might need to go in, and I need to clean this thing out again. Technical difficulties. That's one thing that maybe that's what I should work on. It's the uncloggable glue. I bet you guys would buy that. Actually, I'm pretty sure you would. Okay, so just try to get that glue out to the edges, the top and bottom, or yeah, around the entire perimeter, I should say. If we need to go back in and do a little painting, we can. It's not a big deal. But as we're applying this, just focus on getting these little cutouts matched up. That's your best bet for making sure that you've got it set right. And then kind of worry about the perimeters. We can always go back in and kind of clean those up if need be. Okay, I purposely made that a little bit bigger than that purple piece. You can put that down on your surface so that if you were a tiny bit off, like I was here, I'm gonna just kind of adjust that ever so slightly. It's not a big deal. Okay. Pretty cool. That looks nice. Looks great. Okay, check your seams there. That looks good. All right, let's go over to the other side. Do the same thing there. Let's go ahead and apply our glue onto this piece. And then we have one more little purple piece that's going to go on top of this. This is like the fascia, I think it's called. I'm not an expert on home anatomy, but I believe that is what it's called. Okay, so match up those little cutouts just to kind of get it moving. Get it lined up initially on both sides. And once you've got that, then it's safe to pop it down and press down from the inside. And you can see that if you get that just right, it should have a nice little inset in there. That looks great. Okay, check your seams, make sure everything's nice and flush. Looks great. Okay, so now let's take and put our little purple piece in place here. That's going to go around the outside perimeter. I guess we could have done that first, but either way. Okay, doesn't matter. Go easy on the glue here. All right. And careful lining this up. I'm looking at the center point first, and then lining up the ends and the rest of it It'll just kind of naturally fall into place, and once it does, flip it over and push down from the inside so you don't get glue all over the place. Let's take a look. That looks great. Awesome. All right, same thing on the other side. And then I think we're gonna put the shingles on with the actual roof attached to the main structure. I think it'll be easier since we'll have a little more structure to kind of cushion the pushing. I don't know why I just said that. I think that means something else. I don't know. I'm going to pretend that I don't know what that means. Okay, there we go. That's nice and lined up. Flip that over, push down from the inside. There we go. Cool. Okay, so here's what we're going to do next. We're going to take this entire roof, okay, and we're going to slide it over the chimney, and I'm going to just show you before I actually put the glue on. I would hold the chimney up like this and then push that down. It should slide over. It might be a little tight, but if you just kind of ease it in, you'll see that it fits perfectly. And if for whatever reason your paper is thicker or the panels that you have on the chimney are a little bit thicker, just take your time and very gently push it down while you're kind of lifting up with your middle finger, and it'll go there. It'll go there. It's built so that it does. Okay, and we want these sections to be as flat as possible, and that's how it's going to go on. But I'm going to do that again, but this time we're going to put some glue down strategically in certain spots just to make sure that it stays nice and anchored. Okay, so we're going to actually focus the glue on just the areas where there are score marks. Okay, those are the only areas that are actually making contact with the house. The rest of the roof is kind of free floating, and this is all we'll need to keep this thing nice and secure. Okay, look at the front and the back, decide which one you like better, which one looks better, and use that as your front. Okay, and then very gently just line that up with the chimney. Hold it from the inside and slide it over. And once we have the top part down all the way on both sides, you can begin just kind of very gently pressing down on the rest of it here so that it makes contact. Just like that. That's it. Okay. There we go. That's kind of cute the way it is. All right, so now you'll notice that we have a series of little markers here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 is 4 dashes in the shape of a square or a circle. And we also have sets of shingles with the same numbers. Now, since I embossed mine, the numbers were not as visible, so I wrote them in with a little marker. Okay, so I know which ones are which, but you may want to do the same thing. Okay, worst case scenario, if after embossing you're still not sure because the score marks are kind of not visible, just look at the PDF file. They all have unique shapes, they all have unique sizes. Okay, like this is my number 4, this is my number 3, I have 2 of those, this is number 2, 2 of those, this is number 1, 2 of those, and then the other ones don't have numbers because they're very unique. Okay, so of course we're going to start with number 1. Okay, and you'll notice that there's a Roman numeral 1 here, and there's a score mark just above it. Okay, so we're going to take our number 1, and we're going to actually glue it right up to that score mark, like that. We're going to do that on both sides. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. And if you want, I was thinking that I wanted to raise these shingles up a little bit. I don't want to make them too pronounced. I just want them to kind of maybe stick up a little. And I might even change my mind. Maybe I don't even want them to stick up. Not quite sure. Yeah, I think I just wanted to stick up just a little bit, okay? So you don't need to put glue on the entire thing, just mostly towards the top, like so. Okay, and we're gonna take this and butt that right up to the little score marks there, just above that Roman numeral 1. Make sure it's nice and centered, press it down, and voila. Okay, got a really cool texture on there. I'm not even sure where I got that from. Okay, we'll go over to the other side, find the other number 1. I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Is it? Yep, that's the one. And I'm just going to raise this up a little bit. Just bring those shingles up a little bit. Like I said, don't want them too pronounced. There's so much going on with the inking and the embossing and all the other embellishments. I don't want the roof to take away from everything else. So I'm going to keep the shingles fairly flat. Okay, just line it up with that little score mark. Make sure it's centered. Press it down. Nice and easy, just like that. All right, next we're going to find number 2. Here's number 2. There's 2 of them, obviously. And I'm going to take and just flare these shingles out ever so slightly. I found this really cool embossing folder that I've never used before. I think what it is kind of the texture of a leaf, like zoomed in. But yeah. Okay, so here, this is number 2. Number 2 has a score mark there as well. It's basically this fold, and that's going to go like this. And yeah, I'm going to keep it flat. I'm just going to raise the shingles up a little bit. Okay, and go ahead and apply our glue, mostly just to about 1 inch from the very top, like so. Line that up with that score mark. Make sure it's centered, just like that, and press that into place. We'll head over to the other side, find your next number 2, and I'm using a nice thick dowel just so that it's just a very slight curve. Again, our gnome or fairy is not really, hasn't had their roof replaced in quite some time and needs a little help. Okay, just make sure that's good and centered. And just press that down. Next, we're going to find number 3. This is number 3. They're both identical. You can see I went deep purple. Deep purple. That's a band. Deep purple on the inking. Okay, 3 also just above it. You're just going to go right to the fold. Use that as our reference. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay. Go over to the other side, find your next 3, and I'm just gonna, this is already, because of the curve of the roof, these are already gonna kind of flare out naturally, so I don't want to add to that. I want to kind of keep it pretty flat. Okay, here's number 3. Press that into place. There we go. Okay. And here is 4. Let's take a look and see how 4 sits without any, I guess I can curve it up a little bit. Almost regret curving number 3. I'll just curve it up a little bit. There we go. So there's 4. Let's get that in place. Just a little bit of glue at the top. Match that up with that score mark there, just above that little Roman, it's not a Roman numeral 4. It's, like I said, it's 4 marks in the shape of a square. Okay, there we go. Head over to the other side, next 4. And glue. Line that up. Make sure it's nice and centered. There we go. And worst case scenario, I can either lift these up or I can take these and with some foam squares or some 3D Zots, I can kind of push that down, but I do like that. It looks nice. Okay, so next we have these pieces that don't have any numbers, and they don't have any numbers because it's obvious where they're gonna go. I'm just gonna slide those in like this, and those get glued just like that. And you know what, if anything, I might actually curl these down. Our prototype, we ended up scoring, or yeah, training these like going up, but I think I like it down. Okay, so again with this, just a little bit of glue at the top. Maybe just go all the way up to where the chimney's cut out, like that. And you can kind of separate it a little bit, flare it out as you get it in there. Make sure it's flush up against that chimney as far as it'll go, and then press it down. There we go. Just like that. Okay. Let's go over to the other side. And yeah, I flared these up, but I'm going the other way. I think it almost makes more sense from the perspective and life of a shingle. Okay. Oops. I'm bending that fence over there. That's okay. I think the wonkier the better. Okay, so give that a nice little tug. Get that nice and centered. I guess you really can't not get it centered as long as it's around that little rectangle. There we go. That looks nice. I might even take and just glue down this front piece. We'll see. Okay, one of these has like kind of a little claw on one side. I'm going to put that on the front, going towards the chimney and around it. Get that glue off there. And this one I'm not even going to train. I'm just going to leave this flat. I want this part to be nice and flat. There we go. And last but not least, yeah, this little fella. Okay, and this one, I think I'm going to put the thicker part on the outside. I don't think it really matters. And that's just going to go right in the center, nice and flat. There we go. Cool. Look at that. Nice and whimsical. I think, like I said, I'm going to take these front two, these two sets of shingles here, and I'm going to glue those down flat. I don't like how they're sticking up too much. Just a little bit towards the center of it. Keep that down. Same with this one here. You can make your roof however you want though. It's not a big deal. That's where your artistic decision making comes into play. Okay. All right, so you can see here, our tissues are coming out. Let's see how this thing looks. Well, I think it's darling. Okay, and now we just have some embellishments to put together. Pretty much done here. We just have some little embellishments to add to our cute little house. I'm gonna start on the front. And I did take and ink a lot of these pieces. Okay, and you can glue these down flat, but I think to add a little bit of dimension to this, I think we should take and maybe just train some of these leaves out or in and just glue the main part of it down. Now you'll notice that there's a series of little markers throughout. Okay, like this one has some markers down here. You want this to be flush and right on those markers, and you can see how this kind of zigzags around all the little gold elements too. Okay, so we can put those in place. I'm just going to put glue on the main stem all the way up to the top. Just be very gentle with this. We don't want to disturb the roof. Okay, so this should be flush on the bottom, and the rest of it will just kind of fall into place. And leave those leaves that we trained sticking out to add that extra bit of dimension to the project. You can see how nice that looks. Okay, there's another one that goes on the other side. Okay, and I'll make sure I grab the right one. It is this guy here. Okay, so I'm going to just train the main leaves here. The little swirly elements, I'll leave those alone. Just the leaves. Okay, flip this around, and anything that we didn't train, you can go ahead and put some glue on. You can go up the stem a little bit on that little stray one there. And we'll go right there. Okay, and this one here, the little markers are right there, so I kind of grab it like this. That's going to go right against the very edge there. And there we go. Helps to ink these a little bit so that we create a little bit of separation from the green that's already there. Okay. All right, so moving on here, I'm going to find this little piece. There's a little marker right here. That's going to go right there. We got the little circles there to help you match it up with the corresponding flowers. Okay, so again with this, I'm just putting glue on the stem and maybe just a little bit around that circular little circle there. Circular circle, of course. What other shape would it be? Okay, it's going to go right there. Pop that down like so. All right. And I'm going to grab a flower like this. I'm going to grab a smaller dowel here. Hopefully I still have one. Let's grab a hibachi. And you just take and you got to be careful with these because they are pretty small. Would almost rather just kind of train these with my finger. All I'm doing is just kind of flaring them towards me, kind of bending the tips towards me a little bit so they're not so flat. Yeah, I don't know that you want to use a dowel on these because the surface or the amount of paper that's actually keeping it in place is very minimal. So almost be better not to use a dowel. Okay, we're just going to pop that one right here, right on that little circle. And then of course that center of it, perfect little spot for a rhinestone. Okay. Next, you're going to find, you'll notice that these purple flowers have little triangles cut into them, and the triangles are various sizes so that when you match them up, you'll know which one to use because it'll fit properly. Okay, and that one's going to go right there. So with this one has a little more surface area connecting it to the center. So you can take and just kind of curl that with the tip of a dowel. This is a little skewer. And I'm just going to put a tiny little dot of glue in the center there and match it up with that triangle. If you don't get it perfectly on that triangle, don't worry because there's going to be some bling on there anyway. Okay. Here, I'm going to go with a different color here. I've got like this is like a pinkish purple or a light purple. Just to change it up a little bit. And that one's going to go right here. Just like that. It's pretty tiny. That's okay. All right. We've got another little tiny purple flower. And I'm just kind of going clockwise around the front. And put a little dot of glue on there. Match that up with that triangle there. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to put some bling on that anyway. Okay. All right, now there's one of these flowers that's a little bit smaller than the rest. That's the one I'm grabbing now. Same shape, same color, just a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to curl the tips of those petals out towards me a little bit. I have some glue on my fingers, sorry. Throw a little dot of glue on there. And you can see the little circle here. I'm going to match that up with the circle, press that into place. Just a tiny little bit of dimension. Okay, we're going to grab a small purple flower here for the bottom. I'm going to train those petals in. Yeah, this is one of those projects that you need to take your time with and enjoy because it's magical and you don't want to rush it. It's going to be really cool. Okay, so there we go. Look at that. So cool. All right, let's move on over to this side here very carefully. Don't push down too hard on any of the little surfaces. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to take this little piece, and you can see there's a series of little markers there at the bottom to help you with the positioning of this. This is going to get glued down flat completely. I'm not going to train anything on this. I'm just going to go flat since we've got a lot of stuff going on the rest of it. Okay, there's like a L-shaped marker there. Just line it up. Make sure it's flush at the bottom, just like that. Press that up against there. Okay, and then you're gonna have a series of, there's a couple of little leaves that are individual. There's some small ones. There's some with two of them together. Okay, so those are the options we have. And for right here, this little circle here, I'm gonna grab some of these leaves. Let me see. Okay, these are a little more spread out. It doesn't really matter. You can pick whichever ones you want. They'll all work. There's no right or wrong way to do this right now. But if you want, just follow along here. It's going to go on this little circle here. A little bit's going over the window. That's fine. And let's grab one of these flowers. And we're going to flare this out just a tad. Okay. There we go. Pop that into place. I probably could have lifted that up a little more. Just want to be careful not to, you can kind of curl them up like that. There we go. That's nice. Okay, for these two triangles here, we're going to take, it's going to be one individual leaf with a triangle, and that's going to go right here. So you just take and put a little bit of glue on that. And you know what, let's train this one. I already put the glue down, but that's okay. Just need to raise it up just a tad. Pop that on there like that. And then we'll grab a small one with a set of leaves. Let's train those. A little dot of glue on there. We'll have those kind of pointing up. There we go. Okay, grab, I'll do a light purple here, and then a purple on the one below it. I guess it's kind of bluish. Yeah, it's kind of blue. And don't forget to embellish the centers of the flowers. Okay, so this one's going to be a relatively small one. Let's curl those petals in. Oops. I don't know what just happened there. I have a little bit of felt on there, I guess. There we go. Okay, so that's nice. And moving to the back. Be very careful. All right, we've got one more large one like this. Okay, I'm going to take and just train the tip of this out. We'll train this one out. That's going to go on flat, which we can train that one out. And let's give this one a little love. Okay, and focus your glue on the stem, going through the center all the way up to the top. Let's do this one too. Okay, and this should have a marker. Where's that marker? It's about right there, but this is going to match up with, okay, just to the left of this little dot. We're going to pop that on there, nice and flush. There we go, push that down, just like that. Let's do the green parts here. Now you can see that this one here matches up with that one there. It's going to go like this. Let's train this out. Okay. Like that. All right, we have a little circle cut into the gold part. We'll grab these two leaves that are connected and rather close together, not completely spread apart. And it has a little circle on it. That one's going to go this way, like that. Okay, and we have some small, a really small triangle there. We'll grab these two that are connected that have a small triangle on this little circular piece here. A little bit of glue there, and then just match up the orientation of the triangle to match that up. Where is it? It's got to go this way. Okay. We have another triangle here. Find a set of paired leaves. With this one, I've got one leaf that's a lot smaller than the other, so we can use that one. Throw a little glue on there, and then just match up the triangle. There we go. Okay, so that's all the leaves for that one. So now all we have to do, this purple flower is going to be the largest purple flower of the bunch, which is what you should have left. Actually, there's a few purple ones, but this is the largest one. Okay, and just match that up like so. Here we're going to put one of these. So I'm going to just try with the dowel here, but I'm going to make sure that I have my thumb holding the center in place so I don't accidentally rip it off. I've done that many times before. Don't want to do that again. So this is all basically embellishment type stuff. If it seems redundant, then I mean, just do it on your own pace at your own time. You're pretty much done with this project. Okay, so whatever you want to do next is up to you. All right, we've got another purple one here, and then we just have a couple of flowers up there, and then one more side. Stick with me here if you'd like while we wrap it up. But yeah, you know, you want to make something special, it's going to take some time. Like I said before, Rome wasn't built in a day, and these statement pieces that we typically make, they do take a little bit more time, but this is what we're known for. And I think you can be very happy with the result. Definitely a feeling of accomplishment. It's been a while since we've done an involved 3D project like this. I want to venture to say that it's maybe even since the bungalow. This one's a lot easier than the bungalow though. But I think it'd be a really cool complement to the bungalow. But what I love about it the most is that it's very practical. And I think it will work as decor for pretty much anybody. Okay, let's get that flower lined up. I'll lift these petals up a little more. There we go. I'm going to use a blue flower there. Okay, yeah, so we just have one side left. A little dot of glue there. Pop that in place. There we go. Let's take a look at what we got so far. Super cool. All right, last side here. Start with this piece, okay? And again, you've got some score marks there at the bottom. This one I'm gonna do completely flat. You can train it if you want, but there's only like really one leaf that you can train. Okay, there's the marker for that section, nice and flush with the bottom. If you're off a tad, it's not the end of the world. There we go. Okay, got a circle here. That just leaves this fella. As far as the leaves go, we'll do the leaves and then we'll do the flowers. And I want the leaves kind of going this way. All right, and we have a triangle here. We'll do the triangle with the two leaves grouped at the top here. Okay, like that. And then the single leaf triangle right there at the bottom. Like so. All right, so we've got a purple flower. It's gonna go right here. And I actually have a pink one. I think I was supposed to put the pink one on the front, but whatever. I'll match that up right there. Where's that pink one? Where's that pink one gonna go? Oh well. All right, let's curl these. Get this one in place. That one's gonna go up above the purple one we just put down. Like that. And then that leaves one more of these large ones. And I'm just gonna train these with my finger. You could do either way, just be careful so that you don't rip it. There's, I don't even know how much, but very little paper holding each petal to the center. And a little dot of glue there. Pop that into place like so. And I feel like why am I missing a flower? And there it is. Very cool. I wish I could clap and turn the lights off in here. One other thing too, I may or may not take the fronts of the shingles and add some glue, just paint them down so that they're flush. I don't know if I like them like that. We'll see. I'm gonna walk away, think about it, but there it is, and it is super cute. So it's gonna do it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please visit us on our YouTube channel and join our 64,400 plus subscribers. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new project, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I'd love to see it. And so would the rest of our community. So or go to Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Official, where you'll find over 46,000 of our friends that inspire us daily. So hope you had a blast. As always, I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos and please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section where you'll find over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly tutorials. I'll see you in the craft room.